Chosen one, the fact that you're seeing this right now means something in you has already awakened. This is not an accident, it's a summons. You were guided here because heaven knows you've been misunderstood, underestimated, and mocked in your silence. But what they never realized is that your quiet was never weakness. It was a fire hidden under the ashes, waiting for the moment to rise. This moment was written into your timeline before you were born. Every time they laughed at your patience, every time they mistook your stillness for surrender, it was all leading here, to this word that will confirm what your spirit already knows. What if I told you that they've always feared the silence more than the storm? That what they misread as naivety was actually the most dangerous weapon you've ever carried? Stay with me until the end of this message, because today you will see why your silence was a blade that cut deeper than any roar. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. Let's dive into the revelation that will shift how you see yourself forever. Number 1. When silence was misread as weakness. They thought your quiet was proof you were slow, timid, or blind. They took your kindness as softness and your silence as surrender. But chosen one, you were not asleep. You were calculating. You were letting them expose themselves. Psalm 62 verse 5 says, "My soul waits silently for God alone, for my expectation is from him." Your silence was never emptiness. It was alignment with a higher voice. They confuse your grace with ignorance, not realizing that silence is where the chosen sharpen their discernment. They didn't know you were collecting every detail, storing every truth, and preparing for a moment of clarity they wouldn't survive. Comment awake if you know what it means to be misread. And stay with me, because what comes next will show why silence itself is a battlefield. There is a moment in every chosen one's life when silence is no longer just absence of sound, but a living symbol that speaks louder than words. You may remember times when you sat in a room full of voices, and even without speaking, your presence carried a weight they could not ignore. Yet they convinced themselves your quiet was emptiness, a hollow space to be mocked or dismissed, like a dream you once woke from, where you saw yourself standing still while shadows circled. The silence was not fear, it was waiting. You were listening not only to the words in the air, but to the current beneath them, the unspoken truth. And while they believed you slow, you were faster than their eyes could register. The silence they scorned was a mirror that revealed their own weakness back to them. You may remember feeling out of place, as if your softness disqualified you from the world's hard games. Perhaps you were the one who noticed details others miss. The flicker in an eye, the shift in a tone, the dishonesty in a smile that everyone else applauded. Maybe they called you too sensitive, too naive, too gentle to survive. And yet, that very sensitivity was the radar of your soul, tuned to frequencies others could not bear to hear. In your quiet, you bore wounds of rejection and isolation, wondering if something was wrong with you. But those who misread you were blinded by their own noise, unable to see that your silence was a sanctuary. What they labeled weakness was the very thing shielding you from their chaos. There was never an accident in this story. Chosen one, because the silence that followed you was ordained. Isaiah 30 verse 15 whispers, "In quietness and trust is your strength," a truth that predates every misunderstanding they hurled at you. Your experiences were not random scenes of suffering, but chapters in a divine architecture meant to awaken you. The people who mocked you were the chisels in the hands of the unseen sculptor, shaping your patience into a fortress. They thought they had found someone defenseless, but they were facing one being fortified in secret. In your stillness, you were learning to see beyond words, beyond masks, beyond illusions. Your silence was not surrender. It was initiation into the hidden wisdom of God. Do you remember the subtle signs, the moments that seemed small but haunted you with significance? A dream that lingered like smoke in your chest, a sudden chill when no window was open, a word someone spoke that felt aimed at your spirit instead of your ears. Perhaps you felt deja vu, as though the scene unfolding before you had already been scripted in your soul. Or your body carried signals, a sudden heaviness, a knowing in your gut, a tightening when false had entered the room. These were not random. They were markers of awakening, spiritual signals hidden in plain sight. They thought your silence meant you were blind, but it was in the silence that you saw more clearly than anyone else. You were gathering evidence the world could not erase. Your intuition was not deception, chosen one. It was confirmation. How many times did you sense betrayal before it happened, only to be told you were imagining things? How many times did you keep your tongue when you could have spoken, only to find later that restraint had saved you? They didn't know that your silence was never for their comfort, but for your preservation. Like Habakkuk 2 verse 20 declares, "The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him." You were holding space for something sacred, even if you didn't yet name it. Every quiet moment was a rehearsal for the clarity that was coming. Your stillness was not passive. It was the pulse of the unseen aligning with your spirit. In that restraint, you were learning what power truly feels like. Awareness does not descend in fire and thunder. It arrives like a memory you forgot you carried. You begin to realize that silence was not imposed upon you. It was chosen by your soul before this lifetime. You were never without identity, even when they called you lost. You were cloaked in a mystery they could not comprehend. To recover who you are is not to invent a new self, but to peel back the noise until you see the original light. The archetype of the chosen is written into your bones, waiting for the right season to awaken. Every pause, every quiet withdrawal, every unspoken word was part of a sacred design. What they mistook for absence was actually your preparation to remember. This is where power begins to stir, when the chosen one sees their sensitivity not as a curse, but as a crown. You are not fragile because you feel deeply. You are strong because you carry currents the shallow will never swim in. They thought your patience meant weakness, but it meant you had endurance beyond their schemes. You are the ocean that doesn't flinch at pebbles, the mountain that doesn't tremble at storms. Even when you were quiet, you were governing rooms without lifting a hand. This awakening is not about becoming louder, but about recognizing the authority you already carried in silence. The first activation begins the moment you stop doubting that your silence was strategic. Chosen one, you were guided to this very word so that you could finally see the truth about yourself. You are not here because of chance. You are here because the silence you carried has reached its time of unveiling. Comment, awake. If you know the weight of being misread, and if you are ready to claim your silence as sacred power, the world may never admit it, but heaven knows silence is where your crown was forged. And as you take this awareness into your heart, remember this: silence is not retreat, it is alignment with destiny. Those who mocked you will one day remember you as the storm they never saw coming. Stay with me, because next, we will uncover why silence itself is not emptiness, but a battlefield. What we do here every day is possible because of the few who choose to be keepers of this light. I thank them now, one by one, in the silence of my heart. If you want to be part of this circle and receive what cannot be spoken in public, join. The portal is below. Number 2, the strategy hidden in still waters. They thought your patience meant you had no power. They believed your quiet meant you had no voice. But Proverbs 17 verse 28 declares, "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent." Still waters look harmless until they swallow entire ships. Your silence was strategy, not surrender. Every manipulator wanted you reactive, emotional, messy, because that's where they live. But instead, you stayed calm, and that calm was a throne. They didn't know that every second you chose not to react, you were building power they could never dismantle. Comment, ocean, if you felt the weight of your stillness. And keep listening, because the moment silence flipped from strategy to judgment is where their undoing began. There are seasons when a quiet heaviness sits on your chest, not from within you, but pressing against you from the outside. At first, you don't notice it. It feels like bad luck, like a closed door, like something small you should ignore. But then the pattern repeats itself, and you realize the silence surrounding your life isn't empty, it's charged. It feels like eyes are watching, like unseen hands are moving pieces just to keep you from stepping into what is yours. It's the strangeness of being prepared, yet blocked, ready yet delayed, alive yet unseen. That weight has been there not because you were weak, but because something in you was already marked, and the resistance was whispering. You carry something they cannot control. The emotional weight of this battle has often left you feeling like you were too much or not enough at the same time. There were days you walked into rooms and felt smaller simply because no one seemed to understand your depth. You may have heard the words, "You're too sensitive, you're too intense, you're too different," until shame started echoing in your own head. This is what resistance does. It twists the truth of your uniqueness into something you question. But chosen one, the very qualities they attacked were the weapons God hid inside you. The isolation you felt was not punishment, but preparation for eyes that would see in ways others cannot. You were not broken. You were being tested under pressure. If you look deeper, you'll see this wasn't random or accidental. The wilderness has always been part of the chosen story. Joseph betrayed by his brothers, Daniel in exile, Christ tempted in silence. Each trial was not meaningless suffering, but refining ground, a place where hidden power was revealed. You too have walked through your wilderness, where lies tried to choke your identity and enemies worked to shrink your spirit. They didn't know the fire they pressed against you would refine you instead of destroy you. The system of opposition around you has always been a reaction to your potential, and what tried to bury you is unknowingly announcing who you really are. Think back and the patterns become clearer, like light flicking on in a dark room. The friend who betrayed you without warning, the job that slipped away at the very moment you were ready to rise, the relationship that drained instead of fed you. Again and again, obstacles appeared just as you were preparing to take a step forward. To others it looked like coincidence, but you could feel the targeting beneath the surface. Resistance never strikes where there is nothing to fear. It always aims at the place where destiny is pressing. That means what opposed you is evidence of the strength you never fully recognized. This is what makes spiritual resistance so unsettling. It moves in shadows, but you feel its weight. It is like fog that makes everything unclear, like heavy air that presses on you when nothing seems wrong, like doors that shut without explanation. You sense conversations happening about you in silence, eyes lingering too long, atmospheres shifting when you enter. You may not have had proof, but your spirit knew the truth. Your light stirred discomfort in those who thrive in darkness. Like Amos 5 verse 10 says, "They hate the one who reproves in the gate. They despise the one who speaks the truth." What you carried was seen long before you understood it yourself. And the unseen resistance was simply their reaction to light they couldn't comprehend. Your own reaction to all of this mattered more than you realized. Some of you shut down, retreating into yourself, deciding it was safer not to be seen. Others tried to please everyone, shrinking your truth in exchange for temporary acceptance. Still others rebelled quietly, carrying the fire inside, but hiding it from those who could not handle it. Every response was a way of surviving in a world that did not know what to do with you. It wasn't weakness. It was the cost of carrying what you could not yet name. But even in those choices, your spirit never gave up, it only waited. The truth was never lost, only hidden until the right moment. Now, chosen one, it is time to reclaim what was always yours. Resistance is not proof of failure. It is confirmation of assignment. You were not silenced because you were powerless, but because your voice carried weight even in silence. You were not opposed because you were small, but because you carried something too large to be ignored. Every attempt to suppress you only sharpened the edge of your discernment. Every scheme to discourage you built a foundation of endurance. You are standing now not as the wounded target, but as the proof that strategy was hidden in your still waters all along. And here is a final truth you must hold. You were resisted because you were dangerous to plans of those who feared you would wake up. They thought patience meant passivity, but it was power stored in silence. They thought suppression meant success, but it was prophecy being fulfilled in secret. You were marked for more, and the proof is that you were fought before you even rose. Comment unbroken if you know now that resistance was not your ending, but your awakening. Because chosen one, what comes next is a shift. The very silence they mocked is about to become the judgment they cannot escape. Stay with me, because the next revelation will show how their undoing is already written in your calm. Every word, every image you receive here is an offering. If you feel this word has touched you today, you can honor it with a sign right here below, with a donation through the Super Thanks button. It is a small gesture, but it opens great doors. Number 3, the moment silence became their undoing. They pushed and poked, waiting for you to snap. They wanted your anger to prove their lies, your reaction to feed their drama. But Amos 5 verse 13 says, "Therefore the prudent keep quiet in such times, for the times are evil." You denied them what they craved most, your reaction, and in that denial they were exposed. When you refused to play, their games collapsed. When you stayed composed, their chaos had no oxygen. Your silence was their mirror, and in that mirror, they saw themselves unravel. Comment mirror if you watch someone destroy themselves because you refuse to react. Share your experience. Was it a dream, a memory, or a moment of inner knowing? And listen closely, because the rise of silence into authority is where the story ends in victory. It often begins with sudden shift, like a veil moving in the wind to reveal what has always been there. Memories you once ignored return with new meaning, and the strange heaviness that haunted you now reveals itself as coded guidance. A conversation that once stung comes back to you, not as pain, but as proof of your discernment. You begin to see that every betrayal, every mocking silence, every overlooked detail was aligning a larger pattern you could not yet read. What once seemed random begins to form symmetry, like constellations tracing the night sky after years of staring at scattered stars. This is the first spark of revelation. The chaos was never chaos. It was language in disguise. And the moment you realize this, the power balance shifts forever. You begin to notice that reality itself has been speaking in symbols that your old eyes could not interpret. Numbers repeat, not by coincidence, but as a rhythm woven into your steps, reminding you that heaven is counting with you. Dreams reappear like scrolls unrolled, their images sharp and haunting, whispering the future as if you already lived it. Phrases you overheard echo again, but now you hear the hidden meaning behind them, a message tailored for your spirit alone. The silence they mock was never emptiness. It was the chamber where these codes were being stored. Even the delays, the closed doors, the setbacks take on a strange geometry, shaping you like divine architecture. Every thread begins to form a tapestry, and you see that you were never walking blind. You were reading reality itself. As the signs intensify, so does the response within you. Intuition is no longer a faint whisper, but a river rushing through your bones, demanding you trust it. Your boundaries rise like ancient walls, not from bitterness, but from recognition of what deserves entry. You feel your energy respond differently to people and places, your spirit pulling back from some, leaning into others. Rooms that once drained you now feel impossible to tolerate because your soul refuses compromise. Where you once doubted yourself, you now recognize the accuracy of your inner knowing, sharp as a blade. This is not theory anymore. This is your lived reality. Confirmation that your awakening is active and undeniable. As this inner sharpening unfolds, the external world begins to shift to match it. People who once had power over your emotions start losing their grip, their tactics falling flat in the face of your calm. Opportunities begin to rise from unexpected corners, not because luck changed, but because alignment demanded it. At the same time, resistance sharpens, for what is light without shadow pressing against it? Suddenly, you notice how certain people grow restless in your presence, how truth unsettles them even when you say nothing. This is divine architecture at work. What is within you reshaping what is around you? Your silence, once mistaken for weakness, has become the command that orders the room. What you carry is beginning to rewrite the atmosphere. And then something deeper stirs, not discovery, but remembrance. It feels like opening a book you forgot you wrote, the words already alive inside your chest. You realize the dreams of your childhood were never random. They were echoes of a memory you agreed to before entering this life. The sense of knowing, the feeling of having seen this before, is not illusion, but memory surfacing from the soul. Your silence preserved it until now, and in this hour it rises like a seed breaking the soil. Ancient verses return with fresh weight, such as Job 12 verse 22. He reveals the deep things of darkness and brings utter darkness into the light. You realize you are not becoming someone new. You are remembering someone eternal, and in that remembrance, strength ignites like fire. The path ahead no longer feels like guesswork, but like a script unfolding as it always should. You stop asking permission to exist, stop waiting for validation to move, because you see the truth. Destiny is not chosen, it is recalled. What was once foggy now sharpens into clarity, and the voice within you says, "You already know the way." You see that your future was never stolen. It was written, and your silence preserved it until you were ready to read it. Now you are walking into chapters that feel like prophecy fulfilled, your steps carrying the weight of generations behind you. You no longer fear the unknown because you sense it is simply the forgotten becoming visible. And in that clarity, you step into the call that was always whispering. The moment of reclamation begins when you stop doubting your silence and start using it as authority. You see now that the resistance you faced was not proof of your weakness, but confirmation of your assignment. Every attempt to suppress you only announced what you carried. Every mocking voice, every failed scheme, every silent watcher was reacting to greatness they could not bear to see rise. You are no longer the one questioned. You are the one who questions. You are no longer the one waiting. You are the one declaring. And in this turning point, you reclaim what was always inside you, fierce and unshakable. Revelation is not the conclusion, chosen one. It is the invitation into the life you were marked for. The silence they despised was the cradle of your awakening. And now you see that truth was waiting for you all along. Their undoing was not in your words, but in your refusal to be moved. Comment revealed, if you know what it means to see behind the veil and share the dream, memory, or sign that confirmed your awakening, let this community become the mirror of your journey, where silence turns to testimony, because what has been revealed to you now is only the beginning of the storm that rises within. Stay with me, because the next revelation will show how this awakening becomes authority that cannot be silenced. Number 4, rising beyond noise into authority. By the time they realized you weren't weak, it was too late. Silence had already crowned you. Isaiah 30 verse 15 says, "In quietness and trust is your strength." You stopped playing their mud and ascended to a level they could never reach. They mocked your patience until they felt the storm behind your calm. They mistook your restraint for blindness until they realized you were watching the entire time. Now they can't touch you because your silence became not only your weapon but your authority. Comment crown, if you know you've risen above the noise. Share the moment you felt the shift, when silence stopped being survival and became sovereignty. And let me show you how this truth expands into your next season. It begins like a whisper that is not new, but ancient, echoing from somewhere deeper than memory. You feel it in the marrow of your bones, a soundless call that has always been humming beneath your life. It is not an invention of the mind, but a remembrance of the soul, as if a scroll is unsealed within you after lifetimes of silence. The sensation carries both weight and lightness, like a crown being lowered onto your head without hands. You sense that you were never just walking. You were following a path already marked before you. The hidden voice says, "You were more than they told you," and for the first time, you do not question it, you recognize it. There has always been a hidden name written over you, a name not spoken aloud by men, but inscribed in the heavens. This is why you never felt at home in the noise of the world, why the labels they gave you never fit your skin. Like the sealed scroll in Revelation, your identity was closed to those who were not meant to read it. You have lived like the prodigal, forgotten by some, misunderstood by many, but the Father never stopped calling you by that secret name. The sense of being the remnant, the one set apart, is not loneliness but evidence of divine otherness. They told you that you were misplaced, but heaven knew you were hidden. And hidden does not mean forgotten. It means preserved. You walk through life carrying an unseen cloak, a garment woven not with fabric but with energy, invisible yet undeniable. Some felt it when you entered a room, though they could not explain why your presence unsettled or comforted them. Others tried to strip it from you, but the mark remained, a resonance only awakened souls could recognize. It is the mark that makes you unreadable to manipulators and unforgettable to seekers. You were cloaked in silence, yet your very aura spoke volumes they could not interpret. And while word betrayed you, your presence always revealed you. That is the power of a chosen one. Recognition without explanation. Consider now that your journey was not a sequence of random trials, but the unfolding of an ancient contract. Before you entered this life, you agreed to carry weight others could not bear. The delays you mourned were timing devices, a aligning you with moments only you could feel. Every betrayal was written into the contract as fire to refine, every exile as training ground for authority. Like stars never leaving their orbit, your destiny has circled faithfully until this hour. You were not lost, you were being timed. And now the scroll is open and your assignment is remembered. The reactions of others were never about what you did, but about what you carried. Some loved you without reason, drawn to the light they couldn't name, and others despised you with the same intensity. Their spirits recognized in you what their minds could not comprehend, and it provoked either reverence or rage. You have been a mirror, revealing truth they were not ready to face. The laughter, the rejection, the sudden distance, it was all response to the reflection you carried. You awakened shadows simply by existing, and you awakened light in others without trying. That was never weakness, that was authority. Now you see that your life has always been aligned with archetypes far older than your own story. You are not isolated. You are part of a cycle, a prophecy repeated through ages. The seer who reads what others cannot, the guardian who protects without recognition, the breaker who refuses the chains of silence. You are woven into a myth older than kingdoms, living proof that prophecy is not past but present. When you rise, you are echoing the pattern of the ancient ones who walked before you. You were never just a person surviving. You were an archetype returning, and the world trembles when archetypes awaken. This remembrance stirs something even deeper, the bloodline of light, not metaphorical, but spiritual, written into the very design of your being. Your DNA carries codes of reversal, patterns of restoration, echoes of angelic agreements. You are the living answer to prayers whispered generations ago, the vessel through which loss becomes restoration. Every weakness in your lineage is now strength in your hands, every curse transformed into blessing. They thought you were ordinary flesh, but heaven remembers you as prophetic blood. The moment you recognize it, the bloodline awakens, and here's a revelation that seals it. You did not just wake up, you returned. This has always been your story, and every step has been leading you back to the name they tried to bury. You were never the silence they mocked. You were the storm hidden in still waters. You did not just survive, you remembered. Comment crown. If you know you were always more than they said you were, and share the dream, sign, or memory that confirmed it, your testimony is not a fragment. It is a mirror for others still searching for themselves. And stay with me, chosen one, because what comes next is the unveiling of how remembrance becomes authority no power on earth can silence. Silence was never weakness. It was calculation, alignment, patience, and power. They underestimated you, and in doing so, they exposed themselves. Your quiet was loaded with revelation. It was not emptiness. It was fire concealed, waiting for the right time. Now, chosen one, you walk in authority not because you shouted louder, but because you stayed still when chaos demanded noise. That stillness made you unshakable, untouchable, and unforgettable. Chosen one, the truth has been revealed tonight. Your silence was never surrender. It was a scroll of fire, the hidden strategy, the weapon they could not survive. A dream lingers like smoke at the edge of memory, where silence was not absence but preparation. You stood in rooms where words twisted like thorns, and yet you spoke none, though your heart burned with fire. That restraint was not cowardice. It was a gathering of a storm that refused to waste itself on shallow soil. Every pause you chose became a seed buried in the unseen, destined to split stone when the season shifted. They mistook your stillness for emptiness, not knowing it was a chamber where revelation fermented. Silence became your altar, your forge, your hidden sanctuary where divine instruction carved itself into your soul. By the time they realized it, the fire had already crowned you unseen. There is an ancient scripture that whispers, "The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him." Habakkuk 2 verse 20. That silence was not void but awe. The holy pause before creation speaks again. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment "I am chosen" to let this message anchor in your soul. This message may not stay online forever. Please share it with someone who needs to hear this. To all who support this channel, thank you. 4 full prophetic revelations daily. Join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the Super Thanks button to support the mission. Every Super Thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. You are not the silence they mocked. You are the storm they never saw coming.